Quer aprender a tocar guitarra muito bem, igual aos seus guitarristas preferidos? Esse cara é um dos melhores guitarristas do Brasil e tem um método pronto que com certeza pode te ajudar a se expressar na guitarra como você nunca imaginou. E se você não gostar, tem até 7 dias para pedir seu dinheiro de volta. Confere o primeiro link da descrição e comece ainda hoje.
You know, becoming a dad, and for me at least, it brought a lot of things to the surface initially that were tough for me to deal with. But then what it did was it ultimately led me to a place of peace in terms of the disconnection between my parents and me. And I wonder, sort of, in the later years of your dad's life, who was such a prominent person in your life, and you wrote so beautifully about in your book, and was clearly someone that you love dearly. And my mum is in the later stages of dementia, and so I'm dealing with all of that. And I sort of wonder kind of how you were able to build a bridge between being a son and becoming a father.
Well, this one day at a time, my God. I never write these lessons down, and I always forget these lessons, but sometimes they do present themselves. First of all, my love to your mom. That's a very challenging few years, but I can tell you that when my dad died, it was a beautiful thing. I was so happy for him, to be resolved and somewhat realized, and then just out of any suffering.
I pray for that for sure.
Yeah. And then I wasn't heartbroken, with his passing, but as time went by, I was like, I wish I could call my dad and tell him that this is happening, or that John's back in the band, or that his grandson is playing basketball, or, all that stuff. And then I ride into town to go to band practice, and I pass the locations that he had introduced me to, and the memories come back. I'm like, my dad really did introduce me to a lot of cool things. As destructive as he was and cavalier as he was also constantly feeding me experience and ideas and exposure to different interesting elements of life. So I want to do the same for my son. Yeah. I want to introduce him to cool things, but it's a different era.
It's a different era.
It's a different era.
You go through that, and you come out the other side. You can't not have a plate of armor you want to put on your kids to some. You can't not.
I do, and I was all about doing everything way too young. When I was a kid, like, I just couldn't wait to hurt myself and destroy myself and numb myself and do things that I wasn't emotionally prepared for at all. And I'm always talking to my son, like, yeah, you can try everything you want to try, but could you wait until you're 18?
Yeah. Because
right now your little soul and brain and everything are just, they need to be clean and growing and unencumbered by.
Yeah. Absorb the joy and the purity first, and figure out what you want to replace that with later.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to.
But has he read your book?
No.
Isn't that kind of crazy? I don't think I've ever asked a dad. That's a crazy thing. I don't think I've ever asked anybody I've spoken to who's written a book, whether their kid who's old enough to read the book has read the book.
So first of all, kids don't read books today.
That's true. That's depressingly true.
But he has asked me, he's like, what's in the book? And, well, what if I read the book? And I'm like, you cannot read the book. Nobody in my family is allowed to read the book.
He's using it as leverage. This kid is smart.
He's like, well, I heard that you said in your book, So I think quietly he actually already knows everything. He's just playing his cards.